The Fortean News Podcast. So, welcome back to the show, Dr. Paul Lee. Paul is a nuclear physicist, a doctor of nuclear physics, which is a very rare thing, I think, in the world, um, and a paranormal researcher, journalist, enthusiast, author on his third installment. I've got it right here on his
Oh, you bought
haunted.
a copy.
Yeah,
Oh,
haunted
thank you.
hospitality. Um, so yeah, brilliant books, and we'll talk a little bit about those. But welcome to the show, Paul. So last time you were here, we had a really good chat, and then we finished, and then we chatted for another more than an hour, I think, which was
Yeah,
even
we
more
did. Yeah, I
interesting.
remember. Yes.
And so I'm really pleased to have you back on the show. It's one of my
Thank
favourite
you.
chats I've had. So the new book,
Yeah.
the third in the installment. For those that didn't hear the last interview, what Paul's done is he's gone out, looked at different establishments in the country, hotels, bars, restaurants, found ghost stories, and then gone a little bit further than most researchers and contacted those places to see if other stuff is still going on now. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the latest book and kind of the process that you've been doing?
Well, the process, as you say, is exactly the same as for the first two volumes. Just collating the various locations in the eateries category. So that's restaurants, tea rooms, coffee shops, snack bars, that kind of place. Um, there's a bit of difficulty involved in the actual demarcation of locations because a lot of pubs now call themselves gastro pubs or pub restaurants. So I wasn't quite sure where to draw the line. So if you get volume three and wondering where your favorite location is probably in volume one because I just, in some cases, I couldn't determine what was a pub and what was a restaurant and where the dividing line was. So that's why there's a lot of pubs, restaurants in volume one and a few in volume three. But the process for volume three was the same as the first two. Collect a series of locations for that category. Um, then list it's just more like a gazetteer rather than a dedicated long descriptive list of phenomena. So it's just a few brief lines, unless I could find a lot of detail. So there's the name of the pub or the name of the restaurant or coffee shop or whatever, the location, and they've all been separated into various locations within the UK. But because there were fewer locations this time, I couldn't separate the establishments into counties. So I put them in regions
Right,
like East of England, Northwest England. Only a few in Scotland, unfortunately. I did my best, but I could only find two in Scotland.
right,
None in Northern Ireland and none in Wales, but I did do my best. There were a few, but they'd closed down because
right.
I should say I did go and try and check on these locations. Um, Bit of difficulty associated with some of the venues involved, because whereas for the first two volumes, um, hotels tended to stay hotels and pubs tended to stay as pubs. Sometimes there's a switch over hotels to pubs or pubs to hotels and back again. But with coffee shops in particular and tea rooms, the function of the location tended to vary quite a lot. And sometimes the recorded phenomena refer to an old incarnation
Right,
of the property. So if you look in the book, it says the current name of the property, and next to it in italics is the old name or the old function where phenomena has been reported. Because I wanted to make a list of all locations, even if um, the property is quiet these days,
yes,
because they might just still be dormant. They might
yeah,
still come through to the fore in a couple of years' time. But I didn't want people to say go to Starbucks in Bournemouth or wherever, expect us to see ghosts when that's not the case, and the place was only active a couple of decades ago. So I wanted to make the list comprehensive, but also to instill a sense of not a warning, but also um, to let the reader know that there might not be anything there, but just make it comprehensive. To give one example, there's a place in Hartford which is active. That's one of the few places that has kept some activity after its change of function. In the past, it's been a clothes shop, it's been a barber's, and now it's a small restaurant and cocktail bar.
Right,
And they've had phenomena reported fairly recently in all three of those.
right,
But on the other hand, you get some locations, and this tends to be the predominant factor in most of the places listed in the book. Um, Activities were reported in the past, but not in the current guise of the property, or I couldn't find anything about it. They wouldn't reply to my emails or Facebook messages. So if you get the book, and I hope you do, that's why it has the current name of the property, and next to it, the name where in the past something has been reported. And if you find out any more information, then please do contact me.
yeah. I think anyone listening that's in, this aisle to, you know, a restaurant, a pub, a bar, hotel, anything like that that has any activity, to please do get in touch with Paul
Thank
or
you.
myself, and I can pass it on, because then
Okay, thank
we
you.
can keep going as well. There's
There were considerably fewer places in volume three than the first two volumes, but that's just the nature of the beast, as I say. Uh, a lot of places that could be regarded as restaurants I classed as pubs, so they're in
Yeah,
volume one. So this volume, if you compare the thickness of it compared to volume one and volume two, it's quite a lot less thicker, shall we say. It's
yes,
quite thin and I hope it's in terms of scope and data, it's quite rich, but in
yes.
terms of volume, it's quite small. But
It's
there's
it's
there's a
very
hundred
honest
there's
as well.
150 places in there, amounted to about I think 98 pages. And I say it's a gazetteer, so some places have only got a few lines because I couldn't find much about them. And there are other places where it goes on for quite a while. Um, there's a gymnasium in Biggleswade, which is quite famous. It's done by Weird in the Wade podcast group. And it's a cafe linked to a gymnasium, and they've still got a few ghost reports there, but it's still low key. And if you read the newspapers, as I did, there's a pizza place in Winchester, which up until a few years ago at least was very haunted. So they've got quite a lot in them, but a lot of the places have just got just a few lines because
Yeah,
that's all I could find.
yeah. I love the honesty of it, where there's this place and you haven't made up stories. You've just been really honest and said nothing reported at the moment. I really enjoy that of the books.
Well, I don't want people to go into these places with a false apprehension about, um, you know, it's going to be like Halloween every single night if you go into this pub in
Yeah,
Stings or whatever. It's not like that anyway. But it could be that the ghost is either extinct or they're
yeah,
just dormant,
yeah,
and they're just perhaps waiting for the correct person to walk through the door to instill activity again.
yeah, yeah. We've got a place in Scarborough that used to be a Costa, and now it's a Weird Fish. And the manager of Weird Fish went to the old manager of Costa saying, "Did you have poltergeist activity in here?" And they're both having it, but obviously it's a closed shop now.
All right.
But that's an interesting one in Scarborough. It's on a street with a lot of different things. I know we touched on it last time, but do you want to go back in again? Why did you do this project? What spurred you on?
Um, I'm not entirely sure actually. I can tell you when the genesis of it happened. I think it was just a spur of the moment thing. It happened at the ASAP conference a few years back when I was being interviewed by Christian Jensen Roma on stage. And it was a very impromptu, off the cuff conversation. It wasn't like me giving a presentation because my talk was organized very much at the last minute. So there's no time to prepare anything. And I just had a thought, maybe an hour or so beforehand, that someone should really catalogue all the haunted hospitality places in the UK. I thought, and you could easily separate them into pubs and clubs, then restaurants, and then eateries. And I thought that's been done before, but not recently.
Mm.
And someone should really go through the most recent data set and just publish it. So I came up with the idea just before I gave my talk, and I mentioned it. And from that time on, I started combining my notes and collating and comparing information. And soon after starting volume one, I realized just how much there was. I think I had about 800 for the first
Wow.
two volumes, and I say about 150 for volume three, although it has changed whether places have closed down or been demolished or they've changed function or whatever. And I thought, oh God, what have I let myself in for? So I spent months combining, collecting information, but also doing mini surveys and contacting all of the places on my list that could be contacted and asking them if they'd had anything recent happen. And most of them didn't reply. A
Right.
few said no, nothing, and a couple said yes, we're still getting some stuff, although getting information from them was like pulling teeth at times.
Yes. Yeah.
And then for volume two, I did exactly the same procedure. Um, they were slightly less um, willing to talk about their ghosts. And with volume three, I hardly got any responses at all.
Right.
And those, the ones that I did, were invariably no, sorry, nothing. There were maybe about four or five that said, yes, we've still got some stuff going on. And a couple of those are brand new cases. They've not been reported
Oh,
anywhere
wow.
else. But I say I'm always collecting information. And again, once I got the data and put it in manuscript form, the fun part was creating the little maps,
Yes. Yeah.
which I use with the Mapbox utility, and I put all the little icons on and the blobs and the lines and whatever, and that was fun. And some of the maps ended up being a little bit overcrowded, but as I said before, that is the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
There are some counties on England and Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland where you get loads of haunted venues, and some where there are hardly any. Like from memory, um, Kent and Hertfordshire had a lot of haunted hotels and pubs, but the East Riding of Yorkshire only had one haunted hotel.
Right.
Northern Ireland's got two haunted hotels, and as I said before, I couldn't find anywhere in Wales and Northern Ireland, and only two places in Scotland. But I just thought I'll publish what I've got, and
Yeah.
hopefully more information will come along. But Sod's Law decreed that there's always going to be something that crops up at the last minute. And
Yeah.
days after I published my book, I found out about a haunted restaurant in Edinburgh that
Right.
isn't in a book, but it is on my website because I create a page for updates.
Right.
So my website and my book comprise my current sum of knowledge about haunted pubs, restaurants, and hotels and eateries and whatever. And I update them from time to time. So there's more information there. I forget the name of it, but it's supposed to be haunted by the ghost of a little girl when the building was a public school.
Right.
I forget the details of it, but it's all there anyway.
And you've got an app as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's currently in abeyance at the moment. I'm running into some technical problems with it. I'm confident that I'll be able to get it fixed before Christmas time, but I haven't updated it for quite a while. So I would say hold off on the app for the time being. I've got a similar thing on my website. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that is on the app. It's just like a scaled down version because there are some things you can do on an app that you can't do on um, a web-based app, a JavaScript app, and vice versa. So it does a lot of the stuff, but it's not quite as fancy, shall we say.
Yeah.
But I'm updating that from time to time with new information or updates, asking when places contact me or I contact them and they reply. So things are proceeding apace with regard to the research front.
And it's both the books and the website and the app are brilliant if you are a paranormal tourist because you can go anywhere, open the book or open the app, open the website and find the stories and even do your own little kind of ghost walk trail.
Absolutely, and that was part of the intention of it. I really wanted to encourage people to get out and explore the our great country
Yeah.
and learn a bit of the history of the place, and also try and find out some paranormal news of your own. As I've discovered quite readily, if you go into a pub and get chatting with the landlord after a few beers, and you approach him quite meekly, they they will sometimes tell you some of the stories, and sometimes it is something that hasn't been published in a newspaper or book or whatever. It's either an extension of what has been published, or it's going to be brand new information.
Mm.
And what's the worst that's going to be happen? They're going to look at you sternly and perhaps throw you out. So
Yeah.
you lose a drink and or
Yeah.
maybe a meal, and that's it. But just think of the riches you can discover by wandering around the country or driving somewhere and just having a quick chat with a waitress or the landlord or the landlady. And just by doing that, you could add to our little knowledge of haunted locations in the UK. So why not do it? So it's really to encourage people to get out and do some research of their own. And
Yeah.
it is exciting to hear brand new stories. I won't dispute that. It's incredibly good fun.
Yes.
And I think the
Yeah.
landlord or the landlady also enjoys telling a few tales as well.
As you know, I travel about and go to places and try and find out ghost stories and everything, and you do, and you form friendship, you have a chat, and they're normally quite keen to tell their story and find out what you think of it as someone that's interested in it, don't they?
Well, absolutely, and I think they're keen for the reaction as well. Like for my birthday last year, we spent a few days at the Brook Red Line in Colchester, which I knew was haunted, but I didn't have much information on it. So this is after my book was published, so this isn't in the book, but it is on my website. And I went up to a few members of staff and even the cleaning staff, or the receptionists and the cleaning staff, and asked them, and they gave me a very, very rich catalogue of ghost stories. Some from they said that it's gone quiet in a few years, but things do still happen. And they gave me a long, long list of stuff, and a lot of it is brand new, never been heard before.
Wonderful.
Um, and I was there frantically trying to remember it all because I didn't want to seem a bit rude by scribbling notes down while I was speaking. So I was trying to memorize it all. And when I left the room briefly, I got my notepad out of my back pocket and wrote it all down as fast as I could before I forgot. And we had a few experiences in our own little room.
Did you?
Um, the ghost party piece is turning the TV on at 3 a.m. in the morning. And
Oh,
that
right,
happened
the
to
3
us.
a.m. It happened.
Yes. Yeah, we were there fast asleep, and then all of a sudden the TV just turned on full blast, and we were both woke up with a start. And then I remembered because I hadn't checked before, and I remembered, oh yeah, of course, that's the ghost party piece. And skeptics might say that the televisions had timers on them. Well, I checked with the front staff, and they said no, the
Yeah.
television did not have timers on them. And we had an incident of our TV going off at one point because we tend to leave our little doggy in the bedroom for a while we go out to explore because we can't go in any shops with her.
Yeah.
So we leave the TV on for her while we go out for an hour and we come back. And we came back this one time and the television was turned off. And we'd left it on for her, as noise, as company for her. And then on the last, and we had problems with the kettle making clicking noises, like it was
Right.
turning stuff on and off. And it wasn't the switch wasn't activating, but it was clicking all the
The
time.
sound was, yeah.
Yeah, and I had no idea why it was doing that. And in the end, we pulled it out of the socket on the wall, and it stopped. It never came back on when we plugged it back in. But when we first got into the room for the first hour or so, it was just going click, 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 click all the time, as if it was trying to turn itself on. And that was something the staff said happened in various rooms. They said the ghost loves to rifle through drawers. He'd like to turn TVs and kettles on or off, even if they are unplugged, he said. And on the last night there, we were in bed watching, well, I was watching television. My wife was next to me reading her book. And then all of a sudden, the room just got darker. And I said to my wife, did you just turn the light off, the bedside lamp? And she said, no, because she was reading a Kindle at the time. And the curtains were drawn, so there's nothing from the alleyway outside, and the only other light was from the bathroom, and the door was ajar. But all of a sudden, the room just got darker. It was exactly as if someone had turned a bedside lamp off, but ours had been off anyway for ages, and I don't know what to make of that.
Mm,
I'm still perplexed by it. There was something in the room that was giving out light, and then it just went, and it made the room dark again.
that's interesting.
So that was exciting.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd had a few couple of spooky experiences in other places, but this was quite thrilling, particularly after talking to the staff. And another odd thing was we found our mobile phones were discharging at an incredible rate and
right.
very slow to charge.
Yeah,
And that happened before on a ghost hunt at the Bell Inn in Thetford.
yeah,
Exactly the same thing happened. Um, the power levels going down incredibly, and I thought just a quick blast on the wall socket would do fine. And it was just creeping up very, very slowly to recharge. I've
yeah.
no idea why that was, because you could say that the electrical system in the hotel is a little bit awry, and that might explain why it's charging slowly, but it doesn't explain why it's discharging so fast.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had that on Paranormal Investigation. I
Yeah,
think the most notable one is 30 Drive in Pontefract, where
yeah,
I had a 100% charged phone. It was plugged in on the way, and when I got in, it lasted half an hour. A phone
yeah,
that lasts all day, and again was charging really, really slow when it was
yes,
plugged in. So, and Filey as well in the old youth centre, that equipment used to just drain when you went in. Not just
yeah,
one, whole sets of cameras would just.
yeah.
And is that why it's then so active? Because it's able to do that, maybe.
Well, I would have hoped so, but apart from the first night and the last night and the occasional clicking of the kettle, we had nothing at all. So whatever was draining the power was using it for other purposes. Um, but I'm quite a mild-mannered, a nervous kind of person, and I find it really difficult sometimes to approach people about ghosts. So it's a case of taking a few deep breaths and going up to the front desk and saying, um, "Hello, excuse me. This might sound like a stupid thing, but I'm very much into ghosts, and I've heard that you have a few reports here. Has anything happened recently? Can you describe anything?" And that is my little script that I rehearse beforehand, and I approach people with it. And no, and I expect people to say, well, a few things, yeah, or no, or just give me strange looks. But this time, um, when I did this with three receptionists, and each one of them gave me some fascinating stories, and they didn't look at me see if I got three heads. They each one of them said, the actors said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to tell you more. Great, please, yeah, fantastic." Um, so that was really gratifying. They could have said no, go away, or sorry, nothing, but no, they really wanted to talk about it. And I say, it was brand new stuff. So it does pay dividends if you just have that little bit of courage to ask people.
Yeah,
I've never been threatened as such. No, not threatened or had nasty impressions foisted on me by landlords or whatever. But it's just that initial step, that little bit of courage,
yeah,
because you don't know how they're going to react. Um, I say at hotels, my impression is that they don't like talking about ghosts. This is based on
yes,
my own surveys I've done because they're regarded as bad for business. And some of
yes,
them have actually said that they
yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to
I've
encourage
had the
ghost
same.
stories. Pubs are better, and based on my last survey for eateries, they don't want to talk either. But
Right.
pubs are okay.
I
But
suppose
I
no
think
pub
that the
loses business because of having a ghost, do they? Whereas a hotel might, where pubs, people quite like
well,
having a drink thinking that something might happen.
yeah, absolutely. And I think with pubs, the first thing that happens is they phone up the local rag and get a reporter in.
Yeah, yeah,
And, actually had a few hotels contact me and say, "Thanks for your email. We don't want to encourage this kind of conversation," or they have said it is bad for business. And that's as far as your conversation go, really.
right.
But I think with things like the Red Line or the Bell in Thetford, the places are just so famous. If they were to turn around and say, "Oh God, no, nothing here," then you know they're telling lies
Yeah. Yeah.
because the places are just so well documented. And unfortunately, they gave me some great data, both those places. Um, but we don't tend to stop in haunted places as such because they tend to be very expensive. We just tend to stop in travel lodges or Ibis or whatever, which have got very few spooky tales and are cheap. That's why we stop
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And a few places I've missed out on. The White Hart in Lincoln, we stopped at about 10 years ago. We got a very cheap rate with them, I think through lastminute.com or whatever it was. And I always kicked myself that I didn't have the courage to go up to the front desk and ask if anything had happened there. I just didn't happen.
Yeah.
But there've been a few other places. The Sun Hotel in Hitchin, we stopped at a few years ago, and we talked to a few bar staff and receptionist staff, and they said yes, they're getting some stuff in there. And they said, and some people are so frightened by whatever it is that they would not describe. The staff have found them sleeping in their cars in the car park
Oh
in the early
wow.
hours of the morning. They've actually left their room, and some people at the Berlin and Thetford have done the same thing. They've and actually, now I can think about it, that's happened at the in Colchester as well. They've slept in the bar area. They've been so frightened, and they rarely speak about it. They just sleep downstairs.
That's
And I
brilliant.
know one person in Thetford who just checked out of the hotel in the early hours of the morning and went to a guest house some streets away. He would not stop there under any circumstances.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like my
Yeah,
type of night.
absolutely. Yes. I mean, who cares about cheap pubs and whatever? We want to go to haunted hotels, which is even
Yeah,
better.
that's brilliant. It's it is funny that I think there's a cultural thing with the areas as well. So York is likes to celebrate its ghosts, and then here on the coast, for example, they are very nervous about, and maybe it's because what I presume, and it's an old fishing community in Scarborough,
Yeah.
and we even get calls to come in because they want it to stop, and then on the way they cancel because they're nervous about it happening more or things like that.
Yes.
And
Very
they like to
important.
stay quite quiet about things.
Yes. A lot of places don't really like publicity anyway. They'll call in private groups. And as you say, they are wary about stirring activity up.
Mm,
They don't want to exacerbate it any more than is happening at the moment, and they are a bit frightened by that. Places like pubs are a little bit wary because, of course, they'll use it for publicity to drum in to entice new custom.
mm,
But when you get a private residence or a new location that isn't in a book or mentioned anywhere else, or perhaps just heard by word of mouth, and they want you to come in, they tend to be more genuine.
mm.
But in a lot of cases, they want you to get rid of the
Yeah,
the ghost or whatever it is. And of course, that's not what researchers want. We want them to
yes,
stick around so we can investigate them further. But these poor people and these afflicted of premises, they they don't want to be afflicted anymore. They want to get rid of it. They want to live a normal household without being
yeah,
terrified out of their wits. So it's a very odd balancing act between what you want and what they want.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, if they think that investigators coming in could make it worse, then yeah, they'll just cancel. And it's within their right, of course, it's their property.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
But I just think how many great cases have slipped through the net because of this.
Yeah, we've had a few cancellations, and we always, as an investigator group, when someone says, "Can it stay private?" We sometimes do a report and we say anonymous location on the coast, and that's all we put in.
Yeah.
And then we, so they're not getting any of what they deem negative publicity. But yeah, still they're quite often, which shows it's more than the publicity. It's it's obviously happening. It's obviously genuine, and
Yes.
they're nervous about it. So yeah, Mecca Bingo was one that cancelled on the way, and I can say that because they're closing next week. So
All right. Okay.
so it's not going to upset their publicity. Well, I think they're closed this weekend actually. I think today's the last day. So but yeah, they cancelled last minute when we were literally in the car minutes away from going. So they were scared of stirring it up.
You should have sent them an invoice for petrol wasted.
I know we were a bit annoyed. Someone did actually travel through as well from York as well for that one. So yeah, it was frustrating, but that's just the nature. Like you said, they're letting us come in, and she seemed like genuinely scared as well.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of have some empathy to them.
There could also be a mandate from head office that they don't want any publicity or associations with the paranormal,
Yeah, yeah,
um, because it doesn't align with um, their ethics or their brand ethos.
yes,
And I can speak. I think I came across an example of this myself. It was in Amesbury, which is near Stonehenge, I think, and it was mentioned in a book about haunted hotels of Wiltshire, and it sounded like an intriguing case. And in the first survey I did, the first big survey I did, which was about 5 years ago now, I contacted them and they said it's quiet now. You can go for ages without anything happening, but we have had some stuff fairly recently, and they sent me a very, very long list of phenomena. And when I did volume 2 of Haunted Hospitality, I contacted them again, and they said yes, we've had stuff happening, but they need to have permission from head office
yes,
to talk
yeah,
about it. So I thought, okay, the ball's in their court, I'll leave it. So I left it about 3 or 4 weeks, which I thought was a respectable amount of time without coming across as being pushy or hassling them. And I heard nothing back. So I just sent them a polite email, just a one line saying, hello, been ages since we last spoke, just touching base again. Um, and I heard nothing from them. So I left it another month and then heard nothing back. So I just wrote it off and I said, well, obviously, the head office has not given permission to
yeah,
talk about it. And it's odd. I can't see there's any certainty, but the pub is part of a nationwide hotel chain.
yeah,
And there was another hotel in Wells in Somerset, and the old landlord was very keen to talk. He sent me a big document about the haunted phenomena at his hotel, and it sounded absolutely wonderful. And that's in volume. It's all that's in volume 2. And sometime later, the hotel was taken over by this hotel chain that had taken over this one in Amesbury, and I heard nothing back from them. So I am wondering if it is a blanket policy within the hotel chain not to talk about ghosts.
mm,
And if it is, it's a bit odd because there is a group on Facebook that has got exclusive access to both of these locations.
right.
So maybe they have signed some kind of exclusivity contract with this group, and
Both those things definitely occur. Yeah,
and
yeah,
anyone else like myself, an amateur researcher, just asking innocently about phenomena is just ignored or forgotten about. But they give all the juicy data to this other group.
yeah.
And I don't know quite how to take that because I feel like I'm wasting my time.
It is
They
a
were happy
shame.
to talk years ago, and now all of a sudden they've clammed up. And
Yeah.
I do know that things are still happening in these locations, but trying to find out what is now a near impossibility. Unless you go to them, you go into the front desk and
Yeah.
ask the front desk, and they may just tell you. But
It's
they are very reluctant and reticent to talk to people via email.
it's a real shame, isn't it? Because I've
It's annoying more than anything else because I like to have complete data where I
yeah,
can. I like to
yeah,
find out recent stuff, not decades old or centuries old stuff. I like to find out what is happening right now. And when you're not given that information, particularly if it's been given to a rival team, um, you feel a bit of anger, but you feel like you're wasting your time, that
mm,
you'll never get this wonderful information.
yeah, yeah. I've had a hotel actually, a small hotel, but very, very old hotel. And the staff there were desperate for us to come in because it was getting to the point where they were having to have two workers at a time to go through the corridors and stuff because so much stuff was happening.
Yeah.
And they wanted us to try and calm it down. So they didn't want to get rid of, but they wanted it calming down so they weren't scared to work.
Yeah.
And they repeatedly asked head office because it was a chain, and the
Okay.
head office were like, no. And they're like, well, it's costing you money because we're losing staff as well. Um, some females were even getting pinched in the bottom,
Yeah.
and it was things like that, and they were leaving. So they were getting staff turnover because of it, and they still just
Yes.
didn't want to let us in. I suppose that's an official acceptance of this stuff exists if head office approves it in a way. But also, yeah, we've come across places where they've just given us a blanket no, because they've signed something with another group,
Yeah.
and one of them, the group wasn't even in existence anymore, but they still had about 2 years on like a contract that they'd signed with them,
Yeah.
which is it's a waste, isn't it? And when you're documenting it, like you're not a thrill seeker, you're documenting it like as
Oh,
well
yeah.
as the scientist you are. That's part of our history and heritage that
Yeah, that's
you're
right.
not
Yes.
you're not getting that information.
Mm.
It's a real shame.
It is frustrating. There are a couple of very famous locations, which I won't name, but because well, it'll become obvious in a few seconds. I won't name them, but there are a couple of locations in the UK, and they are ultra haunted. They are really badly haunted. But you contact the head office for information. You contact either the head office or the managerial staff, and they either give you the brush off or they say, "We can't see anything. We can't see anything. We have another group coming in, or we have a dedicated group."
Mm,
In other words, contact them. They
yeah,
won't talk about it. In one of those cases, I'm actually friendly with the lady who runs the paranormal group who investigates one of these places. So I found out from her what happened in this place. If it wasn't for that, it would just be 5 or 6 lines in a couple of books that I've got on my shelf.
yeah,
And what she's told me is goes to a couple of pages. And that's just what she could remember off the top of her head.
yeah,
And this is one of the ultra haunted locations in the UK. So sometimes it's fortunate that you know people like that who can fill in the gaps. But a lot of the time, you just have to take them at their word
yeah,
and say either nothing's been reported here or they didn't want to talk about it. And it's not a case that they won't talk about it because they think it'll damage custom. These places actively advertise their ghosts. They actually
yeah,
encourage investigations, or they want people to check in to experience the phantasmagorical ambience. So they they want your money, but they don't want to talk about it with genuine researchers.
yeah.
And I don't
It's a
quite
shame.
know how that makes me. It makes me feel a bit. It makes me feel a little bit angry, actually, that they're being exploitative in
Yes,
this way.
yeah, yeah,
They could be honest, but then again, I think perhaps they just can't be bothered to send out a massive long email or a long 2 hour long conversation with you about these ghosts. I'm awaiting a email from another haunted place that I sent out before my birthday, and it took a while for them to respond. And then they replied after my birthday, but I couldn't reply because I was away at the time. Said, yes, what would you like? Either an email or a telephone call. So I said, an email would be great. And I've yet to hear back from them 2 weeks on.
right,
So again, what I'll do is I don't appear pushy or rude. So I'll wait another month and then send a reminder. And then I'll wait another month. And after that, I'll just have to write it off. But they send out this tantalizing stuff, this tantalizing email saying, yes, we've experienced things, and they're happy to talk about it, but they've gone a bit quiet. And this is great because a couple of years back, when I contacted this venue, they said that I've only been here for 2 weeks and I've experienced nothing, but the staff and customers sometimes talk about things. So I shot back an email saying, well, like what? Could you tell me more? No reply. So I thought she's only there for a few weeks, just leave it and again try again in a few weeks, no reply. So this is something that I can add immeasurably to my initial query from a few years back.
yeah.
And I think it would be a great shame if this opportunity is lost.
It is, yeah, yeah. It is because they are treasures, aren't they? And I know you. You think that the a lot of the activities kind of dying down and disappearing, and then they'll be lost to history if they're not documented.
A lot of the places are very, very quiet these days compared to what they were many years ago. And they've noticed that. I say in Colchester, they said it's not as active now as it was a few years back. And just going through newspapers or books from 10, 15, 20 years ago and comparing what was reported then to what they're saying now, a lot of these locations are being very diminished in terms of activity.
Mm,
They're not nowhere near as active as they were. And whereas in the past you'd hear stories of apparitions, now it seems to have degraded into just poltergeist like antics or footsteps or things moving. No, nothing grandiose like an apparition, but
mm,
something more subtle like you'd expect with a poltergeist.
yeah,
And a lot of these places are just saying the same thing.
a lot
That
of
it's,
shadows
yeah,
as well.
oh, yeah. And the number of places that come back to me say they're experiencing things out of the corner of their eye in peripheral vision or shadow figures, but not like it was years ago. A hell of a lot of places are reporting this.
Yeah. And why do you think
So,
that is, Paul? I know you can only kind of hypothesize, but why do you think it might be?
well, I'm putting my old physicist hat here on here. Sorry, I'm putting my physicist hat on here. And I think that it could be that the ghosts are just running out of energy and they just don't have the energy to manifest anymore. So they're quite naturally fading away. They're fading away into nothing. Now, whether the status quo will remain like that, I don't know. Um, it could be that they need a boost of energy, like a battery or something, like a battery does, to remanifest. Now, does that involve stirring up the environment, perhaps renovations or refurbishment work, or perhaps a member of staff coming in who is receptive to ghosts and can give it a bit of a energy input, if you like? Um, I don't know, but I've only come across a few places that said activities picked up in the last few years, but even then, it's not spectacular.
Mm.
But a lot of them are just saying we've had far less or nothing at all, and it just in the last couple of years. So even the proprietors of these locations have noted it.
And do you think, I mean, in my head, there could be two kind of reasons for this. Do you think it's maybe as we're going more into this scientific age where we believe less in it, the consciousness isn't interacting? Or is it also because previously we had less distractions and now we might not even notice that something's going on there because we've got ahead in technology?
We're on our mobile phones all the time. Yes, it could be. There's a couple of other explanations. It's been mentioned. The first time was 20 years ago by a friend of mine who pondered that the growing use of mobile phones is causing what he called electromagnetic pollution.
Mm,
And is this hindering phenomenon? It certainly just seemed to relate to the time period said by proprietors that activity seems to have faded down quite nicely with the rise in the use of mobile phones or other wireless technologies. That could be something else. Um, but there could be another reason why we're seeing less and less ghosts on ghost hunts, that is, and that is because we're too focused on them. I don't know about you, but ghosts tend to, or phenomena tends to happen when you least expect it.
yes.
But when you're on a ghost hunt, you're so focused on what's happening in the environment. Is that, do you think that is a possibility that that is actually hindering phenomena from occurring? Because your mental state is blocking out anything from occurring in the environment.
We
I've
we
thought
get
about this for a long time now. Whereas the moment that you start packing up equipment or chatting to
it's about to
friends,
say, yeah.
bingo, things happen.
Yeah.
And that always happens. When you talk to customers or landlords or proprietors or whoever at these venues, it's it's almost usually when they least expect it, and it takes them by surprise. Um, but when they go out looking for ghosts, it never ever happens. And I'm thinking it's something to do with the mindset of the witnesses, that there's something in our brain which is stopping things happening in the environment. And if we could somehow switch off that mental state into, you know, a ghost receptive state, then things might actually happen.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
maybe.
just great for ghost hunters because we just sit there in a darkened room for hours and nothing happens. And I say, the moment you start packing up, all of a sudden, you get little bits happening.
Yeah. Or is
And
that just the trickster element? Is that the old pan mocking us?
I've thought about that. I've often thought that poltergeists at least are like invisible naughty children.
Mm, yeah.
They sit there and wait for you. Um, for they'll sit there and wait for you for hours and hours and hours, and then when you least expect it, then they will do their party piece, like
Yeah.
the television in Colchester just turning on.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they're waiting for you to drop your guard, and then they'll do something. And of course, you don't have video cameras running or your dictaphones running. You've
Yeah.
just switched them off. They wait for that, and I think it's a, some kind of mischievousness about
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's as if they're just well, to be blunt, are they taking the piss really?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they are. And
So
it's
that implies that there's an intelligence to these things, that they're
yeah.
not just recordings that play back when there's conditions right. It's like there is some like poltergeist with my invisible naughty children analogy. They wait for things, and then when the time is right for them but wrong for us, then they play their little games and tricks.
And
So
it's
there's maybe there's an intelligence there.
I think there is, and it's those individual things as well. So we did a public one for Halloween, and because it was a public one, I don't normally do public ghost hunts with people outside of my group. And but so I was a little nervous and making sure all my equipment's
Yeah.
ready and everything, put new batteries in things. And when I got there and I got my dictaphone out, the there were no batteries in it. But and then I was like really shocked, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's no." And I put batteries in, and but no one else knew that. They're probably looking at me like, "Oh, he's obviously mistaken." But I know for a fact I put batteries in it, and it's things like that that are so unprovable to anyone but you.
Yes.
So, and part of that maybe is for you to experience rather than lots of people. I don't know. It's an intriguing one.
It is, yes. And they're usually little things that are personal to people. It's nothing grandiose.
Yes.
It's little things that are um, related to you, like you find the batteries aren't there. It's not like the group getting there and finding out that the cameras have just disappeared or something that would affect the whole group. It's something that would is designed to piss you off
Yeah.
rather than anything else. Sorry for my use of language, but I can't think of any other antagonistic phrase to use. Really, I think sometimes ghosts do act just to annoy you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe it's just their intelligence.
Yeah.
Maybe they've been conditioned to act that way. I don't know.
And if we go back to the old, like I've got some books that I've found, some really old ones on the North Yorkshire moors, speaking of the tales, and it is poltergeist activity, but it's attributed to gnomes and elves rather than
Yeah.
like a ghost, if you know what I mean. And that's very much in their personality as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
wonder,
Mischievous little imps. Yes.
yeah. And I wonder if because we had the imps and then Victorian times we had we attribute it to the dead, and now more people are talking about shadow people and stuff. And do you think it could be just the fact that we are changing our belief system? Not just us individually, I mean like groupthink, is
Mm.
that changing our perception of what these things are
Um,
or how they present to us?
I think it's a cultural thing more than anything else. I think possibly the phenomena has remained the same, although possibly diminishing in severity over time, as I've said. But I think that people are jumping on the bandwagon of recent fads.
Yeah.
Like a couple of years ago, there were black-eyed children. Now it's
Yes.
shadow people.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've had all manner of strange, phantasmagorical entities causing trouble. So I don't think it's necessarily um, new entities. It might be remanifesting itself in different ways, but I think that people are just jumping on bandwagons of the current thing to believe in. And it's
Yeah,
shadow people is the current thing. I
it
hear
is. Yeah,
so many stories about that. And even when contacting these locations, they mention shadow people, but they're the ones that you don't see in direct vision. They're the ones out in your peripheral vision. So I don't think it's quite the same thing. I think it might be an optical effect rather than a genuine paranormal effect. So I'm wary when people say shadow people or black-eyed children or whatever or Hat Man or whatever. I just think it's people using what is fashionable at the time.
yeah,
But I remain to be convinced by all this. I'm not. I haven't done a great deal of research on it, but I think we don't need fancy monikers for all these strange entities. Why not just call them ghosts and poltergeists and whatever?
yeah,
Just say in the past they've used all kinds of names, gnomes, imps, fairies, and whatever. And in the Middle Ages, oh, God knows what moniker they used for them then.
yeah.
So the names have changed, but I think the phenomena has remained the same.
Yeah, it's the same kind of activity, isn't it? Regardless of what's causing it.
Yeah, that's right. And I often wonder about where the dividing line between ghosts and poltergeists is. Like, are poltergeists mental manifestations, or are they just phantoms floating around the ether and that latch onto people? And I see venues that claim to have dozens of ghosts, and I can't really believe that.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a place in Nottingham that is tiny and it claimed to have 89 ghosts. I
right.
cannot believe it has 89 ghosts. You can't even fit 89 people in there, even if someone were to go into the cellar below. So I'm thinking, are the ghosts sometimes acting like poltergeists? And rather than it being one entity, people counted them as two or three or four, whatever. Um, so yeah, is there a very, very hard border between what ghosts are and what poltergeists are? I mean, do ghosts just manifest
Mm.
and maybe talk to people? And do poltergeists just act like naughty children? Or is there some kind of grey area in the middle where they can do one or other, but
Yeah,
we're
as what it
just
says, is it all of it?
characterizing them?
Can all be true.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. I know a few other researchers have said, where is the boundary between ghosts and poltergeists? And do ghosts only do ghostly stuff? And do poltergeists only do poltergeisty stuff? Or can they sometimes do one or the other? It might explain why you see in some stately homes you hear stories about grey ladies, but also things flying around the room or whatever. So you see, you've got the ghost and the poltergeist element, but is it just the same thing?
Yeah,
Just act in different ways.
absolutely. And I sometimes people will say, "Oh, it's my grandma because they did this, this, and this." And I said,
Yeah,
"Well, they're presenting that it's your grandma. We can't say for definite it's your grandma. It could be
yeah,
something else, you know." So it's really interesting, and it's great that that gives you comfort, but it might not be as well. So
yeah,
stately homes are interesting as well because if we look at ghosts of the dead, for example, then probably your average council house has got more people dying in them and more history than a stately home.
yeah.
Why do
You
you
probably
think
do.
stately
Yeah,
homes are so haunted?
I don't know, and I've had quite a few places tell me this. I say, there have been ghost reports there in the past. Has anything been happened recently? And some have said, well, we've got no records of anything dying, so the answer is no. Well, I think, well, no. The thing is, has anything happened there, regardless of whether anyone's died there?
Yeah.
We've got loads of places in my little town where people, where the territory is completely virgin. It was
Mm.
built on brand new green fields, and yet they've got ghosts in them. No one's died in these properties.
Yeah.
So where are all these reports coming from?
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't think anyone's ever answered that. And I just think, are ghosts sometimes floating around the ether looking for locations or people to latch onto?
Yeah.
So they've got no backstory. And when you try and establish a history from them, it's usually a pack of lies.
Yeah.
And that really annoys me because I spend a lot of time trying to research them, trying to find some historical veracity, and found these people never ever existed in the first place.
Yeah.
And those just told us lies. Now,
Yeah.
why would they do that?
Yeah.
Why tell lies? Why not make things easier for people like me rather than me tearing my hair out all the time, going through library records looking for people who never existed?
It is amazing, and the Battersea poltergeist is a great one for that, where it kept giving information that it was this prince, and
Oh, the
then
famous prince. Yeah, I
some of it
remember.
was really true, and some of it
Yeah,
was just utterly ridiculous,
yeah,
like
absolutely. Yeah.
information.
But they sometimes give out little hints that perhaps what they're saying might be true,
Yes,
just enough to tantalize and intrigue. And then when you delve into it in great detail, you find that most, if not all, of the remainder stuff they find that they said is bunkum. It's a
yeah,
load of bull, really.
yeah,
And very often you find that it's the myth that is reported, but not the debunking. So
yeah,
the myth persists for decades, even though researchers know that it just isn't true. And that's something I can talk about with some great certainty here. There's there's an old RAF base near here called Bircham Newton. It's now a construction industry training board building. And in 1971, a couple of psychics went there because they'd heard of ghostly reports in the old squash court. And they claim to have contacted the spirits of three airmen who died in World War II, and they were given lots of biographical information, including names. And for decades, um, it doesn't help that a lot of the information was withheld by the MOD and the War Office and the MOD for confidentiality reasons. But eventually, the information was released, and now we can say with certainty that not only did these three airmen never exist, but a lot of the stuff they told in their ghostly interviews never happened. All the details can be checked, and I've done it, and other people have done it, and it's all a load of old bull. So for
right,
decades, people persisted in these stories about these three dead airmen who crashed in an aircraft behind a church without a spire and whatever, and none of it is true.
right,
And trying to educate people into the facts behind the case rather than the old myths being percolated is an uphill struggle.
yeah.
And you feel like you're wasting your time sometimes. You can't educate people who don't want to listen to the truth. They just prefer the mystic tranquility of the three dead airmen who come back to play squash occasionally. And maybe some ghosts do like to play squash. I don't know, maybe they're sportsmen or artisan ghosts for all I know.
Maybe they're
But
just like
this
making a
story simply
racket.
don't.
That was a
Yeah.
bad joke, Paul.
Oh, yeah. Thank goodness I didn't hear it then. But
um,
there are ghostly reports at the place.
right,
People have heard what sound like a game of squash being played in the old squash courts, even though it's now locked up, or they've actually encountered phantoms and apparitions in the area. There are dozens of reports going back at least to World War II when the buildings were predominantly used. But it isn't these three dead airmen who talked to the
yeah,
mystics in 1971. That is
yeah.
complete hogwash. Put it put it down in your book as a postscript or little nicety, but please, it is not the truth.
It's a ghost story, isn't it, rather than a haunting?
It is, yes, but it's escalated in terms of prestige.
Yeah,
It's mentioned in quite a few books and just accepted as the truth. But now with the records being released, and a lot of them are available online and can be searched in minutes, now everyone has the opportunity to learn the truth.
yeah,
And it's not the only ghost case I know of where we've been told stuff and it just is not the truth at all.
mm,
Just up the road from me, there's supposedly a ghost of a choir master from Norwich Cathedral who died of a heart attack, and we know his first name. He was told to he was told to the current occupier of the house, and there's enough biographical information there to do a check, and the guy never existed.
yeah,
His name was Barney, apparently. And if you contact Norwich Cathedral and do some checks, they've never ever heard of the guy.
right,
So why do ghosts tell lies?
yeah,
What are they
yeah.
trying to prove?
Yeah.
It just makes our life as researchers harder.
Yeah. And flip into that as well. There's sometimes some amazing cases. You know, if you're an investigator as well, and you get some EVPs or something that say a name, and then you research,
Yeah,
and it is that person, and that's even, and that person was lost to history, and then you
yeah,
find some new info. That also happens as well, doesn't it?
yes. There have been a few occasions where um, I've found a little known piece of information in some archive that corroborates what the ghosts or mediums or whatever have
Mm.
said. And it's one of those few occasions where you really do jump out your seat in surprise where you did not expect it. And it
Yeah,
takes a lot of research to find this. So it's not like something that a faker could find in half an hour on Google. This is
yeah,
something that is just stuffed in a way in a box in an archive and not known about for decades, if not centuries.
yeah.
And it's very rare that happens. But when it does, it's really exciting
It
because it
is.
makes
Yeah.
you think that there is something manifesting beyond the ether.
There's
And
a
this could be some little bit of evidence, little bit of proof behind it. But I say that's very rare that happens.
yeah,
Most of the time, it's just a load of old bull from the ghosts. It's like they're having a great big laugh at us, and I
yeah.
wish they'd bloody stop it.
Jeff, the talking mongoose, who they asked him to leave some proof, and he did some footprints, and none of them were
Yeah.
of a mongoose, but they were all of animals that didn't exist on the Isle of Man. So
Yes.
it's that type of thing, isn't it? It's just like
Yeah,
you said, taking the piss.
they're having a damn good laugh at our expense.
Mm. The really famous one is the one in York, I guess, where the ex-policeman was in near the Minster, down I've forgotten the name of the building, but saw this Roman legion come through as he's doing a bit of decorating or something with his son, and they're up to their knees,
Oh,
and
the
just
treasurer's house is
the
that?
treasurer's house. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
one.
the one. Yes.
I've been down there. It's nothing happened sadly, but um, and when he reported it, the historians kind of mocked him and saying, "Well, that's nonsense because the shields and the flags that you've described don't exist to a legion." And then a decade later, or a decade and a half later, they
Yeah.
translated a manuscript, and there was a trainee legion that was returning into York, and
Yes.
their shield and flags absolutely matched his description, and that was just like such incredible coincidence to be on beyond a
Yeah, I
coincidence.
remember that. Yes, I bet that raised skeptics' eyebrows quite considerably.
Such validation, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's great when that happens. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen very often. When it does, it's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah, yeah. It is. It is fascinating when they do give you information, and the most recent one for me, I I wasn't even ghost hunting. I go quite regularly to walk my dog through the cemetery at night, and I was leaving my partner a voice note, and in the background, I mean, it was the dead of night, and not many people are a bit weird like me and like walking in cemeteries in the dark. So there's no one around, but you hear it quite clearly. Hear someone say Annette,
Yeah.
like that. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna go and look because I guarantee that someone on one of those gravestones in that area is called Annette. But there was no one there, nothing to that name. And I was like, the next day, I was like, I was certain I was going to find it. But yeah, I don't know who Annette was or why that voice came up. But yeah, it was a shame because that would have been really lovely to
Yeah, that
get
would be
that
great. Yes.
validation and then maybe try and chat some more. They've never spoken again in that area when I've tried. But maybe I should not try, like you say. Maybe I should just voice note. But then consciously, I'm trying, so
Yeah.
it might not work anyway.
Well, I give it a try. Got nothing to lose.
Yeah, yeah. What's one place, Paul, that you would love to investigate if you had chance?
Well, I think my investigation days are probably a bit past me, and my ideas of investigation is probably not what is um, the most commonplace definition these days. I mean, I go back to the old ASAP days, and pre-ASAP days of sitting in darkened rooms with a notepad and a torch, and maybe with a video camera um, or a tape recorder, a tape recorder, a digital recorder,
Yeah.
trying to get some evidence. I don't really subscribe to the current most haunted definition, which is bringing along a psychic and using
Yeah.
EVP. I just don't agree with that at all because I think the evidence is very, very yeah, that's a yeah,
I
tape
have got
recorder,
an
good old
old
tape recorder.
old
Yeah.
fashioned. I've just bought one,
So
an old fashioned tape recorder as well.
I think that there are various reasons why I don't think that the evidence gathered by a lot of groups these days is very convincing. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the way Most Haunted did things.
Yeah.
Because before then, ghost hunts tended to be very, very passive, waiting for things to happen. But the Most Haunted method tried to be more active and using psychics to goad the ghosts into appearing or interacting. And I am very, very skeptical about the antics of most psychics. I've had some bad experiences with them, and I don't think possibly they should be used. In my opinion, EVPs, I think, are a bit of a menace because a lot of the time, unless it's crystal clear,
Yeah.
it is so submerged in an electronic fog of noise. You have to use a lot of imagination to interpret what is being recorded.
Yeah.
And I've seen people on YouTube with um, all kinds of audio software they've downloaded off the internet, and they just randomly click on buttons and move slider bars along until they get something which is vaguely intelligible. And I'm wondering if these people even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Are they actually trained in acoustics and know what they're doing? So I'm very much in the old school camp of holding vigils rather than investigations.
Yeah.
And that means sitting in the dark, waiting for things to happen. And very often it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my definition of investigation. So it isn't
Yeah.
quite what most people these days do. But if you're talking about site trips to locations and chatting to people, and then maybe with a group of friends doing old school investigations in either a hired room or the generosity of the landlords, and there aren't very many of those these days.
Yeah.
Um, I would like to go to the Mermaid Inn in Rye because
Right.
that has got such a rich plethora of ghost stories. Another one is the Jamaica Inn um, near Bodmin Moor.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've
That's
heard of
got a
that one.
huge, long, long list of ghost stories there. And it's funny because my wife is a bit fatalistic at the moment because of her health conditions, and she's talking about making memories.
Hmm.
And we were just lying in bed the other night, and she said, "Paul, is there anywhere you'd like to go? Any haunted places you'd like to go?" And I mentioned those two, and I said, "But unfortunately, they're very expensive, and the Jamaica Inn, if you don't drive, is difficult to get to. So maybe she's planning a surprise trip to these locations in the near future. I hope so. I
Yeah.
really do hope so.
Yeah.
Um, but there are a couple of other places I'd like to go to, many places like stately homes, and also some out of the way pubs, which are in little villages, because it isn't the case that the most famous places in your ghostly inventory are the places you have to visit.
Yeah.
It could be just a little known pub down the road from you. Um, and there's a great one in Wales. I forget the name of it. And again, the landlady said it's gone quiet in the last few years, but she said that um, they've had some really weird things happening there. And this place isn't a household name. You can
Right.
get it if you search for it. I think it's called the Lindir Inn. However, that's pronounced in Wales.
Right.
Llindir. It's not famous. It's been mentioned in a few ghost books. And this place just sounds fantastic. So
Yeah.
again, doesn't have to be wonderfully famous.
Yeah.
It's just what sounds good. And another place which really piqued my my intrigue is in Bedfordshire. And I spoke to the proprietor for 3 hours on the phone a couple of years ago, and she said they get things happening there at least once a month.
Right.
She gave me a big inventory of ghost stories. either that she had experienced or staff or guests had experienced. And I thought, God, this sounds wonderful. And might be a bit difficult to do some public investigation there because the place is a swingers bar.
Right. Okay.
Yes, she admitted it. She admitted it. She said quite a few times the place is a swingers joint. And I
Right.
knew it was beforehand. It used to
Yeah.
be a hotel, then she took it over. And it seems to be quite, it was very popular, very famous apparently. But it's not the kind of place you could advertise. You couldn't phone up and say the Daily Mirror saying I'm doing a ghost hunt, which you might like to tag along with. And they say, "Oh, great, where is it?" Say, "Well, it's a swingers bar." And I think, "Well, God, just imagine the headlines: Pervy ghost hunters go after sexy ghosts." No, your reputation will be in tatters.
Yeah.
But if you put aside its current focus
Mm.
and its reputation, it sounds like a fantastic place for ghosts to hang out. Maybe they're interested in having a bit of fun on the side. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought that place sounds great to me,
That sounds
and
fun.
not just for the sexy part, the ghost side. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a pub reopening and it's been closed for a long time that I'm excited about in Scarborough. And there is a stall that they leave for someone called Albert. And I've spoken to people that work there that have told me like, no, it's not just a story. We did, and sometimes we even gave them a pint. And people, obviously, it's near the beach, so it's a tourist area as well. And we'd
Yeah.
get tourists sitting in that chair and moving, and they couldn't explain why. They just didn't feel comfortable.
Hmm.
There's a chimney sweep that people see who supposedly moves things around. But the thing that the story I love the most is there was a cleaner that worked there, and she left after one shift. She's like, "So I'm really sorry, I can't do it. I'm hearing voices all the time." But she was also deaf.
So right.
So
Oh, that
so
is interesting.
yeah, so it's I'd love to go in there. And it's the pub itself is older than the street. So it's a very old street, but this pub was on a different street before
Yeah.
that's and most of it's knocked down. So yeah, it'd be nice when that reopens. I'll have to go in and pay a visit there. When we do our investigations, so this one that we just did the market vaults, which was good. And we do have a psychic medium, but what we do is we let her go off by herself in one
Yeah.
group. We investigated with a different group, and then we see if what we get matches up. So
Yeah.
a little bit different, but it is interesting because we have all our gear, and the stuff that happened was still very physical.
Yeah.
So it was nothing we recorded, but we heard a woman talking directly
Yeah.
behind us, and it was moments after one of us saw an apparition, or what we thought was an apparition.
Yeah.
Um, Things being moved, but no evidence. We got absolute apart from what we witnessed, absolutely nothing in terms of actual kind of recorded evidence. But
Yeah.
yeah, the EVP thing's funny because it'll go and they say, "Well, that said, my name's Jeffrey," and it's like, no, it's
Yes.
just a noise. And then you do get some that are so crystal clear. You're like, "Was that you talking?" Because it
Yeah.
sounds like a
Yeah.
person's next to you, don't you? But it is
What what
funny.
what I find with EVPs is people are being primed into hearing what
Mm,
the investigator wants you to hear. So what they should do is they should get the original recording and play it out loud
mm,
in front of the audience
mm,
and get them to write down what they think they've heard.
yeah,
But unfortunately, I've been on investigations where people tell the audience what they think they've heard, and then of course the audience come back and say, "Oh yeah, we heard that too." So
yeah,
they're being conditioned to agreeing with
yeah,
the
yeah,
invigilator, which is not. It's it, it's a way of contaminating the data, which I don't which just completely nullifies the complete invigilation and investigation procedure.
yeah,
What you should really do is what I said, get people to write immediately beforehand their impressions of what they think they've heard and then compare them. Because otherwise, it's just confirmation bias.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you might as well not bother in that case.
Yeah.
And a lot of EVPs I've heard are submerged in electronic fog. You can't make out much of what's being said.
Yeah.
Um, Very rarely have I heard something which is intelligible.
They're so rare. Yeah.
Yeah, incredibly rare. When they do occur and they are intelligible and discernible, they can be impressive.
Mm.
Um, Going back to what you said about mediums, what would be interesting is if the experience of the mediums can be compared in isolation with the experiences of the investigators.
Yeah, that's what we did at
Like,
the end. We
yeah,
came together because it was such a big place,
yeah,
we were able to stay away from each other, and partly we did because we didn't want to any contamination of going, oh, I heard a
yeah,
whisper. Actually, it's the medium group over there. We wanted to
yeah,
stay clear of each other, and there were some things that matched up. And Pamela's very honest, so she was very much like, nope, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. We had some tapping here, and we felt something here, but that's about it. So
yeah.
she's brutally honest, this Pamela. So in all ways, which is brilliant. And it works really well with what we do with her.
Yeah. It it's good if you know the psychic and know them personally,
Yeah.
because then you can vouch what they are like, whether they're a confidence trickster or
Mm,
not. Uh, I've met so many psychics who just use ghost hunts as a way of bolstering their ego,
yeah.
and I think they love being the center of attention.
Yeah.
And what better way of being the center of attention than to burble on about any old crap that comes into their head and having a ready-made audience gathered round them, lapping up their every word.
Yeah.
And most ghost groups do not do any kind of checks on what's being said. They
Yeah.
just file it, sometimes write a report, but more often as not, they don't. But they just accept what is being said as the truth. They
Yeah.
don't go and do any kind of historical research.
Yeah.
And we've had that round here with Castle Rising. We've had various ghost groups turn up and say that Queen Isabella of France is the screaming wraith who wanders the corridors and shouts and yells and whatever. And they haven't done any kind of historical research because Queen Isabella, when she was living there, was not like that. She didn't degenerate into any kind of mental illness. She was compos mentis right to the end of her life. So there's
Yeah.
no reason for this screaming wraith, if it ever existed, to be Queen Isabella. But it's just accepted that she is because that's what ghosts say is the truth,
Yeah.
and that is what's accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's frustrating. I remember being in contact with Alison Weir about this because she used to live in Kings Lynn, and she was absolutely aghast that the custodians of Castle Rising, it's either English Heritage or the National Trust, one of those two, I can't remember which. She said that she was really upset that Queen Isabella's screaming phantom was being touted in a visitor's guidebook. And she said that is not the case at all. She was
Mm,
very upset about that.
yeah. I think
Um,
if I could do it in any way when I'm doing paranormal investigations is to go in absolutely blind and know
yes,
nothing about the building, nothing about the history, get get the data, and if we do get anything, because like you said, most of the time it's like fishing where there isn't many fish, and
absolutely, yeah,
you don't get much. But if
yeah,
you do, to then go, okay, this is what we got. Now let's look at the history. Let's look at
yeah,
what goes on, and then do it that way. Um, the Market Vault one was interesting because it's known for this drunk monk that haunts it.
right,
And then what we got was nothing, nothing like that. We got a tiny woman. She was tiny. What we saw, and it like the voice was definitely a young female, not a drunk monk. We did get a smell of a really strong smell of whiskey in some
yeah,
areas, but then there were stored whiskey in Victorian times down there.
yeah.
So that could be that, like a residual kind of thing. But no
A
monk.
problem, sorry. I was
No,
just about to say that a problem with historical research is that it takes a very long time to do,
yeah,
and you could be delving in an area that you're not a specialist in.
yeah,
So you have to ask people, local historians, who might be able to help. But it is a good way of fishing out the fakes.
yeah,
There's a famous hotel called the Ostrich where it is reputed that the landlord used to tip his guests into a vat of boiling oil during the night and steal his. You probably know the story. I think the landlord's name was Jarman. You
right.
don't?
I
Yeah,
haven't heard this one. No.
right. I think it's in Colnbrook. It's a place called the Ostrich, and it's supposed to be very, very haunted. And the story goes that Jarman, the landlord, used to kill his guests during the night by tipping them into a vat of boiling oil and steal their belongings. And one day he was found out and he was hanged. And the number of ghost hunters who turn up with psychics, and they all repeat this famous story. They're all in touch with Jarman and his victims and giving grisly details. And oh, it's fascinating, except for one little thing. It never happened. The
Mm,
story is completely made up.
yeah,
And that's been proven by historical research by a gentleman named M.J. Wayland. It's all catalogued on his website. Never happened. So what the hell are these psychics getting in tune with?
yeah. There's one
Another
near.
great one is the Schooner in the Schooner Hotel in Almouth. Now that's supposed to have a lot of ghosts there. I think about 60, which I'm really doubtful about. So many wraiths and phantoms catalogued for this one place. They just accepted without any form of veracity or proof.
Mm,
And I found a great website, someone actually did. I found that none of the stories can be substantiated, very few can be substantiated. So, where do these myths come from, and what the hell are the psychics picking up on if it's all complete bull?
yeah. There's
So,
there's
I get angry about that when the same
yeah,
things get percolated and propagated.
yeah, yeah.
It
There's
does take a
one.
lot of time to confirm these stories or refute them, and a lot of people can't be bothered.
And then they get retold, don't they? There's one near me that was literally set up as a way of catching out Derek Akora.
Oh,
And
yes.
so and I know the person that did it, and she stood with her back to him, told the story about this airman,
Yes.
um, and made up a name, and the name was an anagram of like Derek is a liar or something like that.
Oh, Creed Cafer or Rick
Some
Eagles. That was the
yeah,
two, yes.
and it's been retold, and people pick up this airman not knowing that it's absolutely fake.
Yes.
But they've even got a plaque on the wall about it, this airman that doesn't exist, and but then we could get into the tulpa thing of, does so many people believe in it, then bring the evidence,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, talking about false information, have you heard about the cage in St. Osyth in Essex?
No,
Well, the story is that it used to be a lockup for witches. Uh, and I forget the name of the famous witch, but there's a plaque on the wall outside. And of course, people go in, they encountered all kinds of weird paranormal stuff. And some people even contacted this famous, I think her name was Ursula or Ursi or something like that. But they contacted this ghost and she's given all kinds of details about her mistreatment and execution and whatever. And there's a fantastic research group in Essex called Paranormal Reason, and they're well worth checking up on. And they have actually gone back to the original maps of St. Osyth, and they found out that the building that's called the Cage isn't the Cage.
right,
It actually stood, it's since been demolished, but it used to stand about 10 meters further south down the road. And there's
right,
now no trace of it, but that's where the map says it is. So, what the hell are people picking up on at this surrogate cage? Because
yeah,
it certainly wasn't a lockup, and
yeah,
this Ursula witch wasn't incarcerated there. So, how are people encountering a ghost if she was never there in the first place?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
paranormal reason, well worth checking up on. They've done a
That's
lot of research on
that's
that.
really good
But
research.
it's another myth that's just been percolated. It's been
Yeah.
propagated and passed around, and it takes groups like them to actually sit down and just ask the simple question, is it true?
Yeah.
And that means
Yeah.
going back through the old archives. And
Yeah.
they found that it isn't true. The
Yeah.
building is probably very old, but it wasn't the lockup, which is now gone for good. It's, let's say, it's about 10 meters further south and it's been demolished.
Yeah.
So we just need researchers and investigators just to ask that one question, is it true?
Yeah. And that doesn't mean the activity isn't occurring. It just means that it's
Absolutely
not linked
not.
to the what it's saying it is.
Absolutely not. People have leapt on Paranormal Reason group, and I think they've given us some hostility, but they're not questioning people's experiences there.
Yeah.
They're just questioning the historical story of it,
Yeah.
and people getting in touch with this witch who was never there in the first place.
Yeah.
So things are happening there. I
Yeah.
don't doubt that. Like things are happening at the schooner probably, and the ostrich in Colebrook. Yes, it is. But is it linked to the old historical stories, some of which are complete falsehoods? No, it isn't.
Yeah.
So then we ask, what is happening there?
Yeah.
And that is a question that many people just don't want to ask.
Which I think is
As
more
far as they're
fascinating.
concerned, ghosts happen, that's it. They
Yeah.
don't think why, what, who.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
simple basic questions. What is going on? Why?
We've got a chair in Thirsk that's a cursed chair, and
Oh, the Busby Stoop Inn.
that's the one. And
Yeah,
and
that's it. Yes.
and of course the chair, it's linked to the story of someone being hung, but the chair wasn't even built in that time.
Yes.
You know, it was built about 100 years after. But there, you know, there definitely is something going on with that chair, but it just isn't linked to the story it's linked to.
Well, then we must ask, is anyone making any money out of this?
Well, the
It-
museum maybe. Um,
oh,
it's in
it's
a
been
museum now.
wasn't it?
It's in a
Oh, I didn't
museum,
realize
and
that.
it's so the Busby Stoop Inn's now an Indian restaurant.
Oh, wow. Even
Yeah,
better.
yeah, and the chair's been put in Thirsk Museum, but it's on the wall because people feel very. In fact, I think when it was donated, they specified that it must be positioned in a way no one could sit on it because the belief was. I mean, there was even people delivering sat down on it would crash on the way home. It was happening
Yes.
so frequently that more of the coincidence than can be a coincidence. So yeah, it's on there. I am trying to go in during the day. They when I spoke to them at first, I was like, look, you're going to get more visitors to the museum, and it's a voluntary museum. It's a non-profit museum. I was like, so you're going to get more people visiting donations, and they were keen at first, but I haven't heard back from them. So I think I need to get back in touch to see if they'll let us in to do a little investigation. It's
So
definitely a really interesting one, that one.
it sounds like the cursed galleon at the old trip to Jerusalem in Nottingham.
Oh, I
So
don't know that
basically,
one.
anyone who cleans this model galleon in the upstairs room is doomed to die.
Right,
So since then, it's now encased in a perspex casing, and it is covered in cobwebs. It's just filthy, and no one dares take it out the case and clean it. And there's a similar story in Alnwick. There's a shop with some dirty bottles in the window, and they're filthy as well, and no one dares move them because the story apparently is that the last person to do so died. So
right.
they've been in the window for decades, if not centuries, untouched.
I love it.
Uh,
I love
they're
stuff
they're
like that.
great folk stories, but whether they're true or not, I doubt. I'm doubtful, shall we say?
Yeah,
Skeptical.
yeah. It's they're a lovely part of our heritage, though, aren't they?
I think these folk tales really do enrich life, even
Yeah,
if they aren't true. It's just wonderful sometimes to wander around the town centre and seeing a plaque on the wall telling you about a purported ghost or phenomenon that's occurred there. Even if it's complete bull, it's still interesting.
it is. I've taken up loads of your time, Paul.
No, fine. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
It's been lovely having you back. But just before we go, can you tell everyone how to get hold of your books?
Well, I run a website, www.paullee.com, where it's just basically my name with .com at the end. And if you go into the subdirectory of ghosts, um, there's a listing of recommended book titles, not just mine, but also by Ruth Roper Wilde, M.J. Wayland, and also other authors over the years, and that's at the bottom of the page. Um, so just scroll down to the bottom, and they're all there. The latest titles have got flashing borders, so you can't miss them.
Wonderful.
And just look out for it that way. There's about 20 or 30 titles there, and
Brilliant.
they're all very good. And they deal with all kinds of topics from ghost hunting through to general ghost stuff, poltergeists, historical cases, and I'm adding to it occasionally. Um, so yeah, my books are listed there. Um, well, it would be rude not to, I suppose.
And for those that are listening just to the audio, I'll make sure it's in the show note link so people
Thank you.
can
Thanks.
check it. And also just to say, like, if anyone does work in a pub, a hotel, a restaurant, and they have some stories, if they want to get in touch with Paul and let him know, because he's constantly building this database, I know they'll be really gratefully
Thank
received.
you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I say
So,
that building up these catalogue of ghost cases is a never-ending story. Just when you think you've catalogued all the ones you know about, there's a fresh mention in a newspaper or a book. So that means not only do you have to add the story to your database, but it also means that you feel duty bound to contact them to try and ascertain the details.
yeah,
Because we've had so much rubbish over the last few years about the most haunted pubs.
yeah,
And it seems that every time a pub tells a newspaper that a glass has slid off a bar or there was a sound of footsteps, it's touted as the most haunted pub in England. And I think really you should go to some place I've heard of. That's chicken feed compared to some of the
yeah,
stories I've heard. And every Halloween, it seems newspapers, particularly online ones, like to publish their inventories of the most haunted pubs,
yeah,
restaurants, hotels, you name it. And they're repeats from previous years with very little information added.
yeah,
Uh, this year, I just gave up because I thought, I remember reading about this. So I checked last year's newspaper and it was exactly the same set of articles. And I started going through them just for fun. And I think it was one of the Blackpool newspapers. And I checked this with the Blackpool historian. And I said, this place, it's not a restaurant anymore, is it? She said, no. And the last ghost report was in the 1960s.
right,
Well, what the hell is this doing in an online article for recent ghosts? And then it mentioned another haunted pub in Bakeup or Backup, so in less in somewhere near Blackpool anyway.
right,
And the place hasn't been a pub for many years. Lists of places in Brighton, a lot of those have closed down. But the real corker has to be an Oxfordshire newspaper which listed the most haunted ghostly places in the county. And it listed a place called Cumnor Place, someone's called Cumnor Palace. And that's where Amy Robsart died after falling down the stairs in Elizabethan times. And it had a great picture of it. There's only one problem. It was demolished in 1851. So it's not a recent ghost story. It doesn't exist.
yeah,
So I think, why don't these reporters actually do a bit of research and
yeah,
you just try and contact the places?
yeah.
So first of all, see if it even exists anymore, and also see if it is still active. Instead, it's up to poor sods like me to do their work for them, which is it's fun. It keeps me off the streets.
And it means people have to go out and get your book though as well, which is always good.
Yes. Oh joy. Well, I'm working on something for Halloween this year, which will hopefully remove the onus of work off many of these reporters, so they don't have to rely on their decades-old filing systems.
Yeah.
But that's for next summer. I'm going to have a nice break from Ghost, but work on this dossier. And
You'll have to come back on when you're finished and tell me about it.
I will, yeah. It's basically going to be a summary of the most haunted places in various parts of the UK. So I thought that if the reporters can't do their work for them by themselves, sadly, that means I'm going to have to do it.
Well,
Well, let's say
better
it
you,
keeps me off the streets.
better you anyway.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Paul.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Thank you.